DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. PK, we have questions up, poll questions up on all the games this weekend. Well, all the local games this weekend. Utah State, BYU. The Cougars, about 150 votes in. 45% of the people think BYU's going 2-0. Optimistic Cougar fans liked what they saw.
I can buy that.
53% have the Utes winning and covering. 84% think they win, but only not all of those folks are on board with the 2-touchdown spread. And USC, a 28.5-point favorite over Utah State. 62% of the vote has USC winning and covering. If you just go down to winning, well, that's 91%. And joining us now, covering the USC Trojans, Ryan Abraham from USCFootball.com. Ryan, good morning. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on. It's a bummer we don't get to talk about USC and the Utes. It hasn't gone very well for USC lately, but at least you got the Utah State matchup, so it's a pleasure to be on your show again.
Exactly. And, I think we were all watching. The game got huge ratings. USC beat LSU. And I'm curious, there's for anybody who went to school in Southern California, as I did, we've all heard, University of Spoiled Children, USC, right? Ha, ha, ha. But when it gets to football, it's the boosters who are a little spoiled and who can get pretty upset pretty quickly when things don't go their way. And they certainly were upset with last year. How quickly does a win over LSU turn the mood among the boosters, especially when the defense only gives up 20 points?
Yeah, I think the morale of this team it's just a huge rise from just think about early December. There wasn't a lot of excitement for USC's bowl game, playing a ranked team in Louisville, and, Caleb Williams wasn't going to play, but they got some momentum by showcasing some of the younger players. And I think they used that throughout the offseason. And then all the hires that Lincoln Riley made, there was a lot of talk, and we had months and months of, why this is going to be better. And I think, like you mentioned, the boosters wanted to see it on the field, and they got to see it. I think even if USC loses that game, you have to feel good about the changes that were made. Guys looked bigger, stronger, and faster. They looked way more sound defensively. They were making tackles. The linebackers were making plays. The open field tackles was something we just haven't seen for years around USC. So I think the optimism has raised a lot. I think, the boosters, like you said, were pretty upset last year. But I think the entire fan base liked what they saw on Sunday night. Even if USC lost that one, I think they'd feel pretty good about their chances going in the Big Ten play.
They bring in Lynn as the new defensive coordinator, right? That was established, and he has a good track record. And then I think they have about 6 transfers that start on defense, and not just transfers with experience, in a lot of cases seniors. So was it one or the other or a combination of both?
I don't think they did the star power thing in the transfer portal. Like 2 years ago, bringing in Bear Alexander, who was a former 5-star. Anthony Lucas was a former 5-star, and they got some good contributions from Bear Alexander, but Lucas, they're expecting more this year. They didn't get those kind of big name guys like a Gavin Meyer from Wyoming, Nate Clifton from Vanderbilt, who put on 25 pounds. Those were the 2 starting tackles for USC in the game. So those weren't head turning signees. A guy like Easton Mascarenas Arnold from Oregon State and his brother Achille Arnold, I think those are, key contributors too. But none of them were just these 5-star guys that everyone in the country wanted. I think it's more, those guys certainly helped. And I think Kamari Ramsey coming over from UCLA was a big part of it too. But to me, this is more about, you had good athletes last year and the defense was bad. And you have good athletes again, and there's some new ones, but the defense is way better. And it's just, to me, it's about scheme, about the coaching, how they were preparing. D'Anton Lynn, only 1 year in college, but he brings that NFL background. And what I was most impressed about is usually NFL coaches take a while to get acclimated to what, the college life is like, only having 20 hours a week with the players. But he just has a system that works well, and it's easily digestible by the players. I think last year you saw in Alex Grinch's defense, players, linebackers looking at their wristbands going into the sideline as the ball's being snapped, not sure what to do. Now they know what to do. They're just going out there and running around and making plays. And it's just one of those things that just some people don't seem to grasp. D'Anton Lynn grasps it. The players are getting it. They have a lot more confidence, and they're playing much better defense, at least through the first game, than what we saw any of the games last year.
Miller Moss, we don't have a big sample size. He's a junior. He was patient. He stayed there behind the Heisman Trophy winner. But you mentioned the Holiday Bowl game. He was 23 of 33, 372 yards, 6 touchdowns, and only 1 pick. And then against LSU, he comes out, and he's brilliant in that game. Again, about 370 yards and 75% completion rate. If he keeps doing this, A, it's USC, B, they're winning, C, those stats are huge. If you don't have the Heisman Trophy winner, do you have another Heisman Trophy finalist in Miller Moss, a guy who most Heisman Trophy finalists aren't that patient?
Yeah, he potentially could be. I mean, he's only had 2 career starts, both against ranked teams, not at home. And, he didn't get to play his senior year in high school. I think this is going to be the first time he'll play in consecutive weeks, like start a game in consecutive weeks in like 4 or 5 years. So it's been a while for Miller Moss. So for him to come out there and do that against 2 ranked teams is pretty impressive. Now we'll see, a more overmatched kind of opponent on Saturday night. I'm sure he'll be fine. We saw him in like mop-up duty, and he had a couple touchdown runs. He's thrown a few, but I'm curious to see now where it's not going to be as, the DBs aren't going to be as tough. There's not going to be as big of a pass rush as maybe like an LSU or a Louisville, what he's able to do. But I think he's shown he can work within the constraints of Lincoln Riley's offense, and he's not going to be as the improv guy that Caleb Williams was. Is here's the play, here's your first 3 reads, he'll go through them. Usually somebody's open, he'll find that guy, and he's shown he's got a really accurate arm that he can get the ball there. So I think Heisman talk, just being the USC quarterback, you're going to be potentially in that conversation. But for 2 starts and both against ranked teams, play well in both of them and get wins. I mean, that's a pretty good start. It's a tough schedule. If he does have those kind of numbers throughout the season and they have a really good record, I mean, he's going to be mentioned in that for sure. It might be a thing where if he stays one more year, he sets it up for next year.
Yeah.
But just being at USC, I think you have that potential to be a Heisman finalist.
How about the continuity on offense allowing him to flourish? Because I think they only added, they added more than 1 offensive transfer. But right now, there's really only one significant transfer playing, what's his name, Marks. Other than that, it looks like it's a bunch of guys who've been there. And I'm wondering how much that has helped the offense and will help them going forward.
Yeah, I think first in the offensive line, they tried the last 2 years to bring in transfers. It worked pretty well in 2022, and then last year they just didn't have the continuity. So now it's mostly guys that have been in the program and guys like Elijah Page, who's a redshirt freshman starting at left tackle for you. And it was huge to keep Jonah Monheim, who was their left tackle last year. He moved to center, so they have some veteran presence there. But I think, the core of the wide receiver group, they're all true sophomores. Zachariah Branch and that crew, they all came in the same recruiting class. But Woody Marks makes things go, the transfer from Mississippi State. I mean, he had 2 touchdowns in that game, including the game winner. So they needed him. But outside of that, most of the transfers were like wide receivers that are sort of like depth guys. But they bring back Kyle Ford, who had a couple of big catches in the game. He went to UCLA for a year from USC and then came back. So that's kind of an interesting one. But, yeah, for the most part, you have some pretty good continuity on the offensive side.
Were USC fans just giggling as Oregon struggled with Idaho?
I think they were just happy that USC, Oregon's had their number, just recruiting-wise and everything. And there was a lot of hype going in, and USC didn't have as much hype. So it's usually the other way around. But I think they were just happy that USC played well. They don't play Oregon this year unless they meet in the Big Ten championship game. But it's always nice that USC fans, they don't have a problem if Oregon's going to struggle. To see them drop a few spots in the AP poll, I don't think any USC fans cried over that one.
Do they know that Utah State now has Bryson Barnes, the pig farmer, who went down there last year and beat them as a member of the Utes with that last drive? Are they worried because the pig farmer could have an encore performance, Ryan? Don't you kid yourself.
Oh, 100%. I mean, we'll see with, what happens there, but everyone remembers that. Well, the one thing about this game is, it's a short week for USC. You could say there's a hangover effect. I mean, I was on the field in Vegas, and it felt like you just won a playoff game. I mean, they were so excited, and they were, I get it. I mean, there was a big win. USC been down for, a year or so, but you could see them overlooking an opponent like that. But just because there's a potential for Bryson Barnes to start, the guys that were on the team last year, the defensive players, I mean, they took they took it seriously that they were like 118th in total defense. The new defensive players that came in, they'd have to do extra reps, 118 of them, just because they knew they were 118th last year. They didn't want to be that. And, a guy like Bryson Barnes just ran all over them. I think it's going to get their full attention. So it might hurt Utah State that they have Bryson Barnes, even though he had a lot of success against USC last year. But I think that's something that could keep this defense focused because he had so much success against them last year.
How are you adapting to life in the Big Ten? How are SC fans handling that? What are the big storylines there?
Yeah, so far it's okay. I mean, they open Big Ten play against Michigan in the Big House, so that'll be a fun one. But, to come into the conference and everyone's talking about Oregon, not really about USC, and then USC delivers the biggest win for the conference, I think that was sort of helpful, kind of an announce your presence. I think that was the worry that USC was not on a high going into the conference, and they wouldn't be the blue blood coming in from the former Pac-12. But getting that win, I think it showed, okay, USC is still up there. They're going to be a force to be reckoned with potentially, and try to get Oregon to take a little bit of a backseat. I think Oregon's still a way more talented team, and they're going to be fighting for a national championship, playoff berth, and all that. But I think it was definitely a good start to come in with that kind of feather in your cap. It's like, hey, we just came in and beat LSU. There's two big power conferences, Big Ten and SEC, and we just got to win against one of them. Michigan has a chance this weekend against Texas too, but I think that certainly was a good opening salvo from USC going into the Big Ten.
Ryan, good to talk to you. We do miss the Utah-USC games, to be sure. We'll take this, though, and thanks for coming on, and we'll talk to you again down the road.
All right. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Ryan Abraham, USCFootball.com. Kevin Graham, longtime sports radio host in the market, will be talking NFL with us. The opener is in the books. The Chiefs and Ravens down to the final play. Jordan Love and the Packers are playing tonight. A full Sunday of action coming up, including Rams-Lions. We'll talk football with Kevin Graham at the top of the hour. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone.